Here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report, I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh.
President Trump has set off a political firestorm after firing FBI Director James Comey, just weeks after Comey confirmed the FBI was investigating whether Trump's campaign collaborated with Russia to sway the 2016 election. On Tuesday, Senator Chuck Schumer reiterated his call for the Department of Justice to appoint a special prosecutor for the probe into the 2016 election, saying failure to do so would rightly make the American public believe there had been a cover-up in Comey's firing.
The only way the American people can have faith in this investigation is for it to be led by a fearless, independent special prosecutor. If Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein does not appoint an independent special prosecutor, every American will rightly suspect that the decision to fire Director Comey was part of a cover-up.
So that's Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer speaking Tuesday after news of Comey's firing came out. Meanwhile, in an interview with CNN's Anderson Cooper Tuesday night, White House counselor Kellyanne Conway disputed the claim that Trump and his White House are under investigation by the FBI.
Clearly, this White House is under investigation. The people around the president are under investigation. You would agree with that, yes?
No, I don't. I know that some are obsessed
with
the word
James
Russia.
Comey said that there is an ongoing investigation.
The president is not under investigation. I'm around the president. I'm not under investigation. I can name many people in that same situation, but I know everybody wants to.
So you're saying there is no investigation by the FBI that's ongoing right now into the people around the president of the United States?
I'm saying that, well, I don't know that, but I'm saying that to the extent that any of that is true, the president himself is not the subject of investigation.
So that's White House counselor Kellyanne Conway speaking last night to CNN's Anderson Cooper. So, Glenn Greenwald, can you respond to that? And also, again, Trump saying in his letter that he was assured by Comey on three separate occasions that he was not under investigation.
So first, just on the quickly on the Chuck Schumer comment, I think it's unlikely the most extreme theory that Comey's firing was due to some desire to suppress some kind of smoking gun evidence that the FBI was on the verge of discovering, because obviously if there was such evidence, many people besides Jim Comey would know about it. There's still career justice investigators who are continuing to look into this. Getting rid of James Comey would not silence him. But I think the broader point is the correct one, which is that what Trump wants is to make sure there's a loyalist to him directing the FBI, as opposed to somebody who prides himself on being independent. As far as Kellyanne Conway is concerned, she's a lawyer. I think she's using very legalistic terms there to talk about who is a formal target of this investigation. But according to Jim Comey, it's the Trump campaign itself, along with individuals like Carter Page and Paul Manafort and Roger Stone and others, who are the specific targets of the investigation. So whether Donald Trump, the individual, is a formal target of the criminal investigation makes no difference, given that it is his campaign and now people close to his White House who are part of and targets of this investigation.
And given on the same day that Trump fires Comey, CNN reports federal prosecutors have issued grand jury subpoenas to associates of Trump's former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn as part of their ongoing probe into the alleged Russian meddling in the election. You're a constitutional lawyer as well as a reporter, Glenn. So the significance of this, and also Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, weighing in here when he explicitly recused himself. Let's go to that moment in March when Attorney General Jeff Sessions said he would recuse himself from any investigations into alleged Russian meddling in the 2016 U.S. presidential election.
My staff recommended recusal. They said that since I had involvement with the campaign, I should not be involved in any campaign investigation. I have studied the rules and considered their comments and evaluation. I believe those recommendations are right and just. Therefore, I have recused myself in the matters that deal with the Trump campaign. The exact language of that recusal is in the press release that we will give to you. I've said this, quote, "I have now decided to recuse myself from any existing or future investigations of any matter relating in any way to the campaigns for President of the United States."
So this is really stunning, Glenn. I mean, reportedly at the time, Trump was furious that Sessions was recusing himself. And now, though, he hardly has recused himself. I mean, they're saying this came from Rosenstein. He's been there for a few weeks, and this entire memo that came up with a justification for Trump firing Comey, clearly instigated by Trump asking for this rationale.
Even if the impetus for it was Rosenstein, they are admitting that Sessions himself formally endorsed the letter. And I suppose their excuse is that because this firing wasn't about the Russia investigation, but instead was about the email investigation, this is consistent with Sessions's promise to recuse himself from all matters regarding Russia. But of course, removing the FBI director has a major impact on the very investigation that Jeff Sessions promised to recuse himself from all matters concerning, which is this Trump-Russia investigation. Let me just add, I've been one of the people who've been urging skepticism on the question of Russia and Trump and collusion and even the broader Russia questions, and I still do. But my position has always been from the very beginning, given how significant these questions are, it is in everybody's interest, if you're somebody who believes Trump is a Kremlin puppet, to believing that this is just a Democratic conspiracy to avoid self-critique, to everything in between, it is in everybody's interest to have an investigation that at the end, no matter what the outcome, everyone says, I may not agree with all the conclusions, but this was a fair investigation. And what just happened in the last 24 hours makes that utterly impossible, which is why I think the reaction should be, besides an investigation into the firing of Comey, let us construct an actual, independent, empowered body that can truly and finally get to the bottom of these questions.
Well, in a piece in January for The Intercept, you wrote, quote, "In the wake of President Donald Trump's inauguration, the FBI assumes an importance and influence it has not wielded since J. Edgar Hoover's death in 1972. Now, you wrote this in January, and here we are with Trump having fired the FBI director, and he's now in a position to appoint whomever he wants. So what does that mean for the power of the FBI?
Yeah, that story was actually in conjunction with a major leak that we were able to publish about these powers of the FBI, these vast, far-reaching domestic powers that very few people knew about. And we highlighted the importance of it by saying exactly that, namely that the FBI played a really important role in the 2016 election. They continually leaked the parts of the New York office that are close to Rudy Giuliani and were supporting Trump, information designed to damage Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump loves law enforcement agencies and clearly wanted to empower the FBI. And what this is, because of exactly that, is a takeover of one of the most powerful agencies when it comes to the right to dissent, political activism in the United States, and the ability to apply the rule of law equally. So as someone who has tried to tamp down a lot of the overreaction to a lot of Trump's stories, this is one where I'm fully on board in believing that its importance can't be overstated, primarily for the reason that you just referenced.
On Tuesday, NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden tweeted, "This FBI director has sought for years to jail me on account of my political activities. If I can oppose his firing, so can you." And set aside politics. Every American should condemn such political interference in the Bureau's work. I mean, this is pretty stunning. This is Edward Snowden, who Comey, as he said, has been trying to jail for years. And he says, if I can oppose this firing, so can you.
Yeah, I mean, Jim Comey has not only tried to do everything possible to put Edward Snowden into a prison cell for 40 years, he has denounced him as a traitor. He has called him a criminal and a felon, devoted huge amounts of resources to securing his apprehension. And I think what Snowden is trying to encourage people to do there is to say, look, we all have very strong opinions, even vested interests, but there are times as Americans when we say there are certain lines that we won't allow to be crossed, and firing the FBI director in order to influence criminal investigations directed at the White House has to be one of those lines.
Maine Senator Angus King, an independent, who serves on the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, said he came up with an idea last night. He said, why don't we hire James Comey to lead the investigation for us in the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. He's now a free man to do whatever he wants to do. Now, this is a very interesting proposal.
Right. Well, this is what I was getting at earlier, right, is the idea that the objective here was to suppress some smoking gun evidence by getting rid of Jim Comey makes no sense, even to the Trump White House. If anything, you'd make it more likely that it would surface through a scheme like this or through Jim Comey simply leaking it. But what I do think is interesting about Jim Comey is that over the last 12 months, there probably is nobody more hated in Washington, first by the Democrats, first by the Republicans, then by the Democrats, and now again by the Republicans. And in some sense, that is the kind of person that you want leading an investigation like this, somebody who genuinely feels no fealty to any faction or any political party and who everyone knows that's the case. I think that's an ingenious idea.
Well,